beginning of the show, we're talking about Epic-Yellowstone, and epic is truly the word. We have Thomas Winston and Shasta-Grenier-Winston, the Grizzly-Creek-Films husband and wife team, and they are going to join us to talk about Epic-Yellowstone. It is a brand new series through Smithsonian-Channel, and it really showcases the wildlife and the seasonal extremes. It is just incredible, and it's also hosted by a renowned actor and Montana local, Bill Pullman. You can tell he loves Montana, and he loves Yellowstone and the wolves and the wildlife, and they filmed this over a course of 3 years, and it shows you Yellowstone like you've never seen before. You can see it. It starts airing this Sunday, March 10th, and it shows the fire and ice. It shows winter in Yellowstone. And so go to Smith. Also keep up with Tom and Shasta. Go to Grizzly-Creek-Films.com. So welcome, Tom. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Good to have you here. And Shasta, welcome. How are you?
Hello, I'm great. Thank you. Thank you for having us on.
We're so excited. Nancy and I watched this last night, and then we're like, we want more. We want more. And it is, I mean, when we say, like, amazing. You just don't see Yellowstone like this. And, Tom, is this because you spend so much time there 3 years, but I believe you've actually been out in that region for so long? Is it because you get to, be right there, or is it also because of the kind of gear we have these days?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both. We've been filming in this ecosystem, and we kind of refer to it as the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. We film a lot within the park, but we also film on public lands and private lands surrounding the park. And it's really been over a decade of filming many different stories, including a series we did, a long-range series we did for National Geographic called America the Wild, that has led us to this series that is really, I would say, our most in-depth, most ambitious view of the ecosystem that we've ever embarked upon. We gave ourselves the time. It takes so much time to capture these stories the way we want to capture them. And we kind of used all our expertise and all our relationships with amazing people inside and outside the park who can turn us on to where an animal might be at a certain time and what types of behaviors we might be able to get. So it was definitely, this project was 3.5 years, but it's due to our entire team's decades of experience filming in the park that we were able to capture it like this. And one thing we're really proud of that we did achieve in this series is that all the footage is filmed in the greater Yellowstone ecosystem, and all the animals are wild animals, just living their lives as they live them. We didn't use captive animals and other kind of sleight of hand that's often used in wildlife filmmaking.
I know what you mean. Yeah, and I think
try to train like a fox to dive head first into the snow.
I know. I
was like, what?
That was some of the things that were just watching the different techniques of hunting in the snow and how their sense of hearing is incredible. But I want to go to you, Shasta, because you do a lot of the writing for this, right?
Yes, Tom's out in the field, and I spend most of my time at our offices in Bozeman as the footage comes in, starting to find the stories and put them together, and in the end, giving them voice.
Yeah, because the animals, you start to get really attached to their story, and, it's like you want to talk to them. You want to say, man, come on, you can come inside. It's too cold. Come in, So you do get this connection, and, did you follow the animals for a while? I mean, like the otter family in the snow, there they are, and there's that pup, and, I mean, it really, you showed how animals are connected. There's so many people have this vision that animals don't have feelings, and that family, that otter family, I think really showed this interaction and this love for each other.
I mean, I think that one of the incredible opportunities of having 4 hours to develop the character of Yellowstone and then follow the creatures, let us come back to recurring characters in the show in a way you might not have space to in a more compressed format. And being able to do that, let us follow the otter family, follow a bobcat, through a pursuit, and you really get to understand, yes, a creature living in an environment with a specific set of challenges in a way that you wouldn't be able to if you were trying to say everything about Yellowstone in a single show.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
well, you could go forever.
I was just totally amazed. I've been to Yellowstone before, and now I'm like, I want to go back right now. In the winter, I want to go too.
Yeah.
I really do think that the unique nature of Yellowstone in winter, I mean, it really is spectacular. And
Wow.
like we say in the show, very few people see Yellowstone in winter. A tiny percentage of the park's total visitors come in winter.
Well, it looks cold, and you have that, Tom. You're filming that ice, that it is like flying ice, but it looks like
the
fairy
diamond
dust.
Yeah, those are our favorite mornings. It means it's cold, but it's also beautiful, clear skies, and as cinematographers, mornings like that are our favorite time to be out in the park. As Shasta was alluding to, we really our favorite time is often spent in winter in Yellowstone because it's so much quieter. And the interior of the park is closed off. We mention it in the show to most travel and visitors. There's a limited number of visitors that go in by a snow coach or snowmobile. And the animals just tend to, I think, be less guarded of the roadways and the places where you'll see them. It's really our favorite time to be out there.
I had no idea about the bison migrating like that, and it reminded me, we lived in Kenya for many years, and we were really lucky to have seen the wildebeest migration, and just you sit in it, like that's it. You're there for the day.
It's crazy.
They surround you, and you're watching, and zebras come out, and giraffes, and then the crocodiles are waiting for the babies to get across the river. I mean, it's just this epic thing, but when I was watching the bison, it just really took me back to Africa, and obviously a completely different, scene, but this migration of just they're going no matter what, that was incredible to me, seeing that happen.
That was a highlight moment, one of our highlight moments of the series. We film bison often. They're one of the easiest things to see when you go into Yellowstone. So if you're not seeing anything else, you usually end up filming bison. But that was a moment where we were actually heading in from our day of filming. I think we had filmed those otters actually previously in the day, and maybe some of the foxes in the Hayden Valley in the middle of the park.
Wow.
And as it was getting dark, we saw the entire cow and calf herd. So bison, except for a very limited time of the year, hang out with the cows and the calves hang out together, and the bulls are completely separate in a much smaller herd. So that was a big herd of bison, cows, and calves, and they were being led by one individual who knew it was time to leave Hayden Valley. The snow was too deep. They were not going to be able to find grass, and she led them right in the direction of the main geyser basins where Old Faithful and the largest concentration of geothermal activity is. And we happen to capture that. That's another thing where we often, and others as well, might kind of create a scene like that through footage shot at different times and make it out to be the migration. But what you're actually seeing there is the true migration from Hayden Valley to the Old Faithful geyser basin. And we hope it comes across like that. Those are some of the things that we know about the footage, and we don't know if the viewer will appreciate it, but it's great. I'm glad to hear that you were moved by that scene.
Yeah, no,
and I think you're.
Go ahead.
I think your analogy, I mean, when you're seeing migrations, if it's reminding you of migrations in places like Africa, one of the things that's most spectacular, the Yellowstone ecosystem, is it's a place where you can still see those movements. I mean, those great migrations have animated the West for a long time, and to be able to see those residual, those ebbs and flows, those forces are one of the things about an intact ecosystem, and an ecosystem, the park is buffered by other wild places and keeping connectivity in those places to the extent that we continue to fight for that, really those motions, it's just so incredible to be able to see. And honestly, that's one of my favorite scenes in the series, because just to feel flow across the land, the way that that's captured, I think it's just so beautiful.
It was like the wildebeest crossed with, the elephant. That was something I didn't know, that they were matriarchal. And Nancy's like, it's just like the elephant. They're here's the women are pushing pushing the snow through. You know,
when you see the elephants, the calves and cows are together, and the bulls are elsewhere always in a much smaller herd. There always seems like there's more babies and females than males. And so if you run into a herd of male elephants, it's a much bigger problem than if you run into, it's different than if you run into a herd of babies and calves, unless you somehow get in between a mother and a calf, in which case, of course, that's not fun. But I thought that I think you guys did a remarkable job.
I know.
I was so drawn into it.
But I know we're just like nobody move. This is such incredible footage. I mean, we just really felt like wow. The other part was when you talk about the migration and it being you really are filming the wild. What's going on in real time and the wolves and watching the wolves and Blacktail and how this story of Blacktail getting into this whole group of other here comes all the other wolves and how he snuck in with them. He was such a smart wolf.
Yeah.
When I thought was the story of the wolves, Shasta, you're telling these tales, and I think and Bill did a great job talking about this too. It is so important now. This is so timely that people see this when the wolves are being taken off the endangered species list. So I think through this, I'm hoping people will really understand them more and understand the wolf and how important they are.
Yeah, I love, the thing the story of Blacktail gives us a chance to highlight more is that, we might think about predators as, the apex at the top, dominant, but really the life of a predator is difficult. And being able to describe or to be able to show those difficulties, I think is really important because it's not easy hunting, it's not easy belonging, it's not every hunt comes with risks. You really rely on a pack and on those dynamics as a wolf. Also, the wolf restoration to Yellowstone, it's just it's been such a rare success reintroduction. Such a rare. We don't bring things back often, and to be able to see that is spectacular.
It's complicated. It's really, really complicated. I was reading the other day about how when the wolves disappeared from Yellowstone, that the elk kind of overran, and they actually were able, because there were so many elk, when they went down to the riverbanks to drink, that they actually started to change the course of some of the rivers through the park because they were crumbling the riverbanks. So it's really complex what happens when you remove a species.
From
yeah,
an
that's
and
whole,
Yellow. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a whole area that's continually being researched is how has the return of the wolf, the apex predator. I think another thing people don't realize is that an adult male grizzly bear is nowhere near as strong of a force as a pack of wolves. A pack of wolves can take down a grown bison. An adult male grizzly would wait to find a bison that was either already dead or so close to dead that it could take it out. So the wolves returning to the ecosystem have had ripple effects from the top down, and people continue to study it. And it is, I think, like Shasta said, it's this idea that we can actually put ecosystems back together. And in terms of returning predators on the landscape, that'll always be one of the most controversial and most difficult tasks compared to returning like an elk or a deer. So to use this as kind of a shining example of what can happen if we have the will to do it, I think is a special thing about Yellowstone. And I think what we wanted to do with this Return of the Predators episode is tell that story through these intimate character portraits of a grizzly sow with cubs and a lone wolf trying to find a pack.
Yeah, I think it's important. And you talk about also how it affected the coyotes. And we think about here, we're in Tucson, well, for now, we're about to leave, but, every morning, we have them here in the neighborhood, and they're part of part of life here. And we think about, developers are moving into, all the vacant land that we had here. And, you're taking down the cactus even though you're not supposed to. Anyhow. You wonder what's happening to the coyotes from there, because we're encroaching, but they still seem to just keep spreading out. And I didn't realize how spread out from what you were talking about in the Predator series of how the coyotes have been kind of pushed out of their original land, and they're so adaptive.
Yeah, there's certain animals that do much better around humans. The mountain lion's another one that never had a population crash, because they tend to be so stealth. They can continue to hunt and stay out of sight, but do what they need to do because they're solitary hunters. But other predators need lots of landscape and intact habitat to survive. The grizzly bear is the ultimate example of that. They will never do well in a fragmented landscape where developments have moved in, and because they'll just avoid that, and it'll just constrict their habitat so much, and then a certain habitat can only carry so many grizzly bears. They'll have competition among themselves. So we hope that, and it's another example of why Yellowstone is so much more than the park. It's this greater Yellowstone ecosystem. You're kind of talking about 2 million acres of Yellowstone versus 20 million acres of the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. That includes all our national forests, state lands, private ranches that continue to support many of these species. So it's, to make it work in a place, to make other places work like Yellowstone, it's got to be thought of on a much bigger scale, for sure.
We always believe that parks need a huge buffer zone around them, because just even the traffic going in and out. We used to live very close to Joshua Tree National Park, and sometimes it would be so crowded, you're like, whoa. We need a buffer zone. And then they were going to build a casino just at the entrance, and they and we're
they
like, did. Yeah, they did. But apparently they're working on the lighting. So it's just
the buffer zone is key. And
we need a buffer zone.
Yeah. So the other thing, when watching this and, look at the bear, Quad Mom taking her babies all of a sudden through these, they're playing around in these beautiful meadows, and you want to go roll around in the green. It's like spring in Yellowstone. My gosh, let's go. But then she goes, no, we're going to go up into the high alpine. And we've hiked areas like that in Mount Rainier. But then all of a sudden you would think, like, there's no life there. It looks like you're, on the moon or something with all these rocks. But you filmed all these moths and the wildflowers. How are you able to do that? Was that mostly through drones? I mean, because a lot of what you were filming, you were up close. How you filmed the bobcat, that super cool bobcat. It just, and the mountain lion, the bears. How are you able to do that without, because it didn't look like they were just disturbed by you, but then there were somewhere they were like they're looking right at your face, like you could have a conversation with the animals. So Tom, how were you able to do that without startling them?
It's really a combination of a lot of different techniques. The mountain lion scene is using camera traps, like ultra HD camera traps. It's very difficult. One of our team members down in the Jackson area, which is the southern part of the park, Jackson Hole area, it's Grand Teton National Park, was able to capture that using remote camera traps on private land. Those remote camera traps wouldn't be allowed in the park for good reason. They don't want people leaving that kind of stuff out. The bobcat was using this corridor of the river where the tourists go in and out on a daily basis from West Yellowstone going in towards Old Faithful. And it, quite frankly, had become tolerant of people staying on that one. It knew people had this one path, this one road that was groomed by snowcats for the snowmobiles that they would stay on. So we would stay on that road And then the bobcat kind of knew that was our area. It could walk very close to us, but it would stay on the river. And, luckily no one has done anything to startle it away from kind of knowing what its safe zone was versus where the people are. And the same is with some of the grizzly bears that we filmed. They're quad mom. We know where she tends to come out in springtime. And it's an area where there is a road, and she probably actually uses that area because it's probably more safe from the male grizzlies, the lone males who actually wouldn't want her to be successfully raising cubs. So, she's somewhat, habituated to humans being on a roadway where we filmed her from. But again, we don't walk towards her. We don't really leave that roadway. So it's a lot of just being really conscious about what the certain individual animal is going to be tolerant of. And then there are a substantial amount of aerials shot using the latest technology in aerial cinematography, where we have an extremely long telephoto lens on a helicopter that's flying so high to the animals. It really just seems like any sort of airplane or helicopter that they've all grown accustomed to flying by them. Yeah. So
I want one.
that scene, that's kind of like the highest end of production. And Smithsonian commissioned all those productions for our series, and that they're amazing, and we're so happy that they really went that extra mile in terms of putting resources into the production to make those aerials part of it. They were filmed by the team that's done the long-running Aerial America series for Smithsonian, and they're just pros at getting the most beautiful aerial cinematography.
It's amazing. I just love that it's not invasive. Like, it just allows wildlife to be who they are and go do what they do. It's like, it just is so cool. And I think it's, when you see, footage like this, I mean, it is epic. That's the perfect word for it. I mean, because it just is. It's hard to put it in words. So Shasta, I mean, I don't know how you do it. It's like, look at this. I just would be running around, look. But it is so beautiful. And I know a lot of people don't get that opportunity to go to Yellowstone. And for them, they get to have this appreciation for wildlife and for nature as a whole, the wilderness, and how nature works and geology works. And so it gives everybody this perspective. And I think that's important, because not everyone can go there. And we also want to have some balance. And when we start to understand and we see things like this, we understand balance of, hey, maybe I'll go in winter, or maybe I won't, I'm going to be a better traveler, when I go into a park in a nature area. So I think
or maybe I'm going to be a better, or maybe I'm going to be a better consumer. And probably the most important decisions we'll make regarding all of it will have to do with our daily lives wherever we live. And so, to love something, you can probably love it more, even effectively from afar, always, So to be able to share that love and that care, and to be able to then be conscious in the choices we make we have, our voices matter in political decisions that we make, in consumer decisions that we make. All those things impact the park, no matter where you are. So
I agree.
I don't know.
I agree.
To that extent.
I agree. I want to touch on, so we talked about Fire and Ice. So that's the first segment that comes out, first episode that airs this Sunday, March 10th. Okay, then March 17th, it is the Return of the Predators that we're talking about, the grizzly bears, and you're talking about the wolves. And then March 24th is Life on the Wing. So, Shasta, this is the series about birds, because was it over 100 species of birds live there?
Yeah, there's more than 150 species of nesting birds. I'm pretty positive I have that stat right. And then there are even more that come during migration. So Yellowstone offers really diverse ecological habitat, from the heights of the mountains down to the valleys, ephemeral wetlands, wetlands that come and go as the seasons change. And this was a very exciting episode for us to produce, because, of course, when someone commissions a Yellowstone show, you always want your big players, your charismatic mammals, and the exciting animals, and to be able to look at Yellowstone through the eyes of the birds and with an attention to no less fascinating life histories was incredible. To be able to follow that show follows a variety of species through a season of arriving, mating, laying eggs, caring for young, and then eventually fledging. And we followed very different species. So a tiny mountain bluebird,
cool
pair of ospreys who nest at the base of the falls, the lower falls of the Yellowstone. So that was an exciting show because it just tells such a different, a story about a different Yellowstone than you've ever seen.
Oh man, wow. and swans. It was like, oh my gosh, look at the swans, and then you've got your mallard ducks. Oh, the mallards crack me up. You know how they go in a row like that. I was like, and then because we love ducks. We have a thing about them, and they're just always ack, and it just seemed like they were laughing at the bobcat. Okay, it just was like, you can't get me, ha ha ha.
We're watching it and we're like, oh no, don't get a duck.
But then you're like,
oh man, he needs to get a duck. He needs to have a duck, and it's like, finally, and then it's like, oh, but good, oh.
I know, Tom. Don't you want to interfere when you're filming, or have you really schooled yourself to I'm just filming?
Yeah, you're concentrating so much. There's so many factors in making sure you actually capture it so it'll be worthy of the film that you're almost distracted by. You tend to connect more with what you captured later when you see it. Because you're just working so hard between the technology is great, but it also is a full-time job to make sure it's all working right. And when moments like that final bobcat duck encounter happened, that was two of our team cinematographers were there for that moment. I was there for the time when it missed the ducks, which was another fun one. But yeah, they put themselves in the right place and they just executed perfectly when it mattered. It's easy to not be in focus or for something, the batteries just died on your camera. All those things can happen. So,
well, not in the winter. A mosquito bites your face. That's the thing. It's always mosquitoes on your face.
In the winter, you're fighting the cold with your batteries. A battery that might last a few hours could die in 30 minutes when it gets that cold. So that's one of our biggest challenges. Yeah.
Oh, I always wondered that about my camera because the one won't even open its shutter. It's like, no, I'm not. You got to, warm me up. I'm like, okay, it's the batteries. Here we go again. Do you do happy dances when you get back and look at all the footage?
Yeah.
They're like, dude, look at that, I got it.
Yes, yeah, that's the reward, definitely. Yeah.
So Shasta, the final one is Down the River Wild, and that's March 31st. So this is really it. Everything goes by water, right? That's what life comes from that. So
that one tells the story of the journey of the Yellowstone River from the headwaters and the peaks surrounding the park all the way to the convergence with North Dakota. And the exciting thing about that episode is that we were able to show the connectivity, to show how the park really doesn't end at the border by following that line of water as it moves. The Yellowstone is the longest undammed river in the lower 48 states. And to be able to see the kinds of the ebb and flow that persists and what that sustains in an undammed river is really an exciting part of telling that story, the story of the Yellowstone.
Oh, I love it. So everyone, this is on the Smithsonian-Channel. So go to Smithsonian-Channel.com to see how you want to watch it. Shasta, what if we, we're out of the country or something and we want to watch it after March? Is there a way to do that, or after the date that it airs?
Yeah, Tom, I think you know the specifics of this best, but I think Smithsonian has lots of streaming options. So what can you
Smithsonian has a Smithsonian Plus option on things like Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire.
Cool.
There will be a little bit of a holdback. I'm not sure exactly when they'll be live on it, Smithsonian Plus, but they will be. And then also check out iTunes to purchase them there after the premieres. They, I don't have the exact specifics, but I think they will be on iTunes the following day after the premiere. So if you don't get Smithsonian Channel, hopefully you could, whether it's Amazon Video Prime or iTunes or all those other avenues. But yeah, Smithsonian Plus will be a place where they all will live for a long time.
Yeah, cool.
And
they always do reruns too, and of course everyone can go to your website, Grizzly-Creek-Films.com, right? So you'll keep up with that too, so people can link
we're
through.
Going to put things like those direct links to Smithsonian Plus and iTunes if you don't have the Smithsonian Channel. Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, we want to know because we're going to be traveling full time, and that means we don't have a provider, which sometimes I'm really glad about. So we're just like, we want to see this. It's so epic. We just really appreciate the amazing work that you've done, because we know it's a super hard work. It's beautiful, and you definitely make a difference in the world. So everyone, again, Grizzly-Creek-Films.com, Smithsonian-Channel.com, and we're going to play a special song for you. We always like to play music for our guests. This is called Mori. It is the Forest song, and it's from the acoustic duo based up in New York City, Yagul. You can keep up with them at yagul.com, and it's from their latest album, Yuna. Thank you both for joining us. It's been such a pleasure, Tom and Shasta.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Yeah. We appreciate it.
Happy travel.
Yeah,
happy exploring. Hey, where are you going after this? Are you going to stay filming in Yellowstone, or are you doing something else?
We have two young daughters, so probably staying close to home for the foreseeable future. Continue to film in Yellowstone. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. We're going to be
it's
watching.
Great
We're
keep being inspired.
We want more.
Thank you.
Good life for that too. All right. Thank you so much. Here it is, everyone. The song Mori.